Good afternoon and welcome to this new Hangout session as part of the eForum discussions on educational assessments. My name is Anne-Berit Karli and I'm one of the moderators for the eForum discussions. Today's Hangout will be given by Dr. Silvia Montoya, who is the director of the UNESCO Institute for Statistics. She will give a presentation of UIS, New Assessment Database and Catalog, and also discuss how this can serve as a first step towards a global partnership for learning. Dr. Silvia Montoya became the director of the UNESCO Institute for Statistics in 2015. And with the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, Silvia is working closely with the international education community to build a consensus around a core set of indicators to measure progress towards education targets. We will now first have the presentation, and after that, Dr. Montoya will respond to questions from all the viewers. So if you want to ask questions or give comments to the presentation, you can do this by entering the Hangout chat right after the presentation. So by that, I'm pleased to give the floor to Silvia Montoya.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Anne, for your presentation, for your introduction. I am very happy on behalf of the UNESCO Institute for Statistics to launch our database and to share with the community and show how this is linked to the measurement and the metrics related to the keeping a track on the monitoring and assessment. That is 4.1 is the first goal in the Sustainable Development Agenda. So I am pleased to walk you through the process of the database and through the process of discussion about the global monitoring and how to build a monitoring and assessment. So now we turn to the presentation and trying to show our work. So basically, we are presenting a database right now. So that's related to the work on tracking and leveraging the resources that are at the global level. So basically, the Institute has been working for the needs that we are going to be having in terms of a leverage of what the countries are doing. So for this, we're going to walk a little bit through a process and try to walk through the political landscape. So what is the discussion of the Sustainable Development Goals, the role of UNESCO, and the role of the UNESCO Institute for Statistics. And this is going to be the first part of the discussion today. And the implementation modalities that are related to the discussion of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have a coordination at the national, regional, and global levels. We're working in indicators at the different levels of monitoring. The first characteristic is a country-led action. So the countries have definitely, as they are sovereign states, a lot of the decisions and definitions regarding to the monitoring. There is a need of the regional strategies and framework as well. It's not the only level. The country has their own policy, but they are integrated in the regional strategies, and their strategies need to be defined, and we're working from UNESCO towards helping the regions also, not only the countries, in defining those frameworks. UNESCO leads and coordinates Education 2030 as a specialized agency. UNESCO has been chairing the Education for All and now is working towards the Education 2030 agenda. On November 4th, the Framework for Action for Education 2030 has been adopted by member states in the General Conference of UNESCO. UNESCO has a role from combining agencies, regional and intergovernmental organizations. UNESCO has been working closely, and the different institutes of UNESCO as well have been working on that process. The UNESCO Institute for Statistics has been coordinating the technical advisory group to the Education for All, with all partners and some member states representing regions. And this is the framework for monitoring the progress towards the 2030 agenda. Is in place regarding this. In keeping definitions and try to be clear in the way we phrase proposed there are different level of indicators that have been working with partners. All the international community related to education has been forming part of that group, and that group has proposed indicators specifically for the global and thematic monitoring. And we have 4 levels of indicators. We have global, we have thematic, we have regional, and we have national indicators. The set of thematic indicators has been developed by this technical advisory group and is annexed to the working document, not part of the adoption of the framework for action. This set of thematic indicators has 43 thematic indicators. Some of them are the global ones, and they are highlighted in the publication of that process. And then we have a better picture of how that's going on. We have at the national level, so the member states and more than 200 countries in the world, 92 that belongs to our member states of UNESCO. We have the national level of monitoring, we have a regional, we have a thematic, and we have a global level. So we have the global level that are the focus on the set of globally comparable indicators based on indicators. There is only one target that has 2 indicators, that is one related to early childhood. We have a broader set of thematic indicators that cover the range of sectoral priorities that are 43 indicators. We have the regional level working with the different regions, and there are regions that have been taking over an initiative and have already some proposals. And we have the countries that have different needs and that are related to the policymakers' agenda at the country level that need to have a different agenda in terms of the indicators, including the ones related to learning outcomes. In all these levels of monitoring, and we are not going to decide of the indicators that we have at the global level. Those indicators are the 10 targets that have been mentioned, and 8 indicators in those targets. In terms of the global approach to the SDG 4, all the indicators are related to this switch between access to what the kids really are achieving in terms of the different stages of the basic education and the early childhood and during the adulthood. So basically we have those different levels of indicators that are related, and this is the links that we're building in the image, related to the different levels. So we have in basic education related to learning outcomes, we have in early childhood looking at the developmental stages of the kids, we are trying to track and monitor the literacy and the distribution of skills, because everything is related to try to measure achievement and knowledge, and not only if the kids are at school, so we have also ICT skills, we discuss global citizenship and education for sustainable development. We take into account means of implementation, so there are indicators related to that. We have 3 at the global level, and we have more in the thematic set that are related to the things that are the aspects that are needed to make the goals achievable. And then personal dimension to be disaggregated in the cases we could, related to different dimensions of equity that have been set clearly in the last meeting of the IEG in Bangkok in the last week of October. And we have a financing. We need to have indicators on financing because we need money to make, and the countries need also some money and mobilized resources related to education. So this is basically what is related to the political landscape where where the discussion is involved. So we have there at the global level, and then you can have a very quick snapshot to what is discussed at the thematic level. We have 43 indicators, and you have in each of the 7 targets and the 3 means of implementation, how many indicators in the thematic set are proposed and have been proposed by this technical advisory group. And how do they work, the thematic indicators? The thematic indicators are 43, and actually the countries are not obliged to adopt those indicators. The only ones who are part and have been adopted are the global ones. Of the 43 thematic indicators, the countries have to choose a menu if they want, and eventually some countries will to keep track of the global ones, and eventually they don't really do anything else with the thematic. And some other countries or regions could choose to have more actual indicators than the thematic set. There has been in some cases, we heard that some of them are going, some regions want 60 or 70 indicators, and this is up the process of this. The document is an annex to the and is a communication is available online. And in the middle of that discussion is that what we in terms of the resources allocated to create new tools, into the first, try to have the first picture of what's going on. And the fact is that there's a growing concerns in terms of what the countries are doing and the low level of achievement. So we have different tools of different types that are measuring and tests that show that the levels of the kids in the below the minimum of achievement are really a problem. We know that this is a main change that has been in terms of the SDGs. Because in the case of the change from the MDGs to the SDGs, most of the process is changing from completion or from access to this monitoring level of achievement. We know that this
Sorry. Can you restart?
this one is now ready.
Yeah, it's ready. Sorry. It's ready.
It's, okay. So one of the main things is just the content. The context where the discussion happened is that there is a growing concern about the low levels of learning. despite the access, we know that the low level of achievement is a concern by different regional and international assessment, and also for the results of the national discussion. That this is a main change in the SDGs, and there is a heterogeneity in the use of assessment as planning and monitoring tool. And there is some skepticism about the technical rigor of some of the assessment in some of the regions and the countries, and so we need to know what's going on. And as a background to the measurement of the data, and so we need to know also as well what's going on in the countries. And so for this reason, one of the first attempts in trying to see, we're trying to have a map or a first approach to what the countries are doing in terms of their assessments. So the countries could be joining different type of tests. It's a different type of test at the national level, at the international level, and at the regional level. So let's see the map. So is this one? Is this one?
Yeah, this one.
No, the other is this one. Yeah, that's one. Okay, so basically in the map, what we could see is the different experiences of the countries, and we know that there's an intense activity on learning assessment in all regions of the world. So this basically is a measure of how the countries are having in terms of assessment. It's not only national assessment, but how much they have in terms of the assessment at the national level, how if the country have an assessment in primary, in secondary school, if they join or international initiative, and if they have in both levels. So we could see as a intensity that depends on the intensity how much the countries are having, and we see that there are very few countries, and actually 80% of the countries in the world are having some kind of assessment, and many of them have a national assessment. Some of them don't have national assessment, and they join some cross-national initiative, either regional or international kind of experience. And when we try to dig a little bit into what they do, we see that there are varying intensity by grade of the assessment, and then we have a split in regions, because one of the differences also when we see the classification that depends on the region of the world, how much they are testing, and depend on the grade. And grade 4 is 6th grade actually, but in most of the cases is the end of a. So we basically could see that we could classify the activity on assessment in the and the indicator for SDG 4, the first one, that is the primary indicator. Oh gosh, taking a little bit. So basically what we need to have is a measurement tool that focuses on well-defined outcomes and related benchmarks. We need to yield data on outcomes, baselines, and more importantly, for feedback of policymakers. We need repeated measures if needed, awareness of the relevance of measurement for the different stakeholders, and we need capacity for action and resources and some policy making to achieve the goals, because this is not about measuring for measuring, it's about measuring for achieving the goal. And the UN system proposed a global indicator for SDG 4. The priority one is, the first one is a target 4.1 that calls international community to ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. Indicator 4.1 is the percentage of children, young people, that at the end of primary and at the end of lower secondary are achieving at least a minimum proficiency level in reading and mathematics. So there is already working in terms of the indicators, and we are really clearly so far in what are the levels that we need to be tracking and monitoring. That at the end of primary and at the end of lower secondary, we need to kind of have and come with a solution with some indicators that allow for the global level. With that definition into mind, the UNESCO Institute for Statistics has been leading for the last 2 years different initiatives, starting by the Learning Metric Partnership that allow us setting the first group of people from different agencies and from different sectors and stakeholders in trying to define and to come with a way to come with what could be a global indicator, a global way of the global tool to measure across different countries and regional initiatives. So we're trying to, the objective was try to somehow and to some extent to try to gather and to try to leverage the resources that are already affected and not try not to come with some new idea of a tool to develop. Basically, that group has been working for the last 2 years and has come with a proposal of the options that we have been finding. That group is to define benchmarks and indicators based on assessment. The second one is to develop some snapshots at different grades and ages based on current instruments. Those moments are the end of primary and at the end of lower secondary. So far, the indicator is not, but we already know that 2 levels have been actually the initiative that we try to move forward, that is the catalog that the one we are presenting. And this is trying to build from existing resources at the national level. So this is what we call Stream 1. The UNESCO Institute for Statistics, at the paragraph 100 from the Framework for Action, gives to us the coordination and harmonization of the data, globally comparable international data. We're leading the technical role in trying to come with indicators based on those resources, and this catalog is part of this initiative, and then we could derive indicators from that Stream 1. We have a second stream that is trying to build global snapshot using cross-national learning assessment. And these snapshots are so far at the end of primary and the end of lower secondary. The early grades are still under discussion, but then we can come with those indicators. What is the problem with that Stream 2? That we don't have any cross-national assessment that is in every single country in the world at those levels. So we don't have that instrument or that tool already here at the international community, and we have to come with some idea of how to build, if we could, upon the initiatives that are so far under consideration. And we have a third stream that is the one that is the discussion of the universal learning scale. That is the feasibility of creating a universal learning scale. That is one that needs more time, needs more resources, and the idea that you can go to a kind of a place where you could actually locate each of the national, international assessment and the levels in that curve. This is a kind of more ambitious, and we have the ambition of the international community, but this is going to be taking more time in the initiative. If you can try to have a quick snapshot on how these are framed in terms of the timing and how we're working. These are working on different, like in parallel, but with different timing. So we know that we already have the national assessment, and we have a lot of wealth in terms of the databases and in terms of the resources that are the countries are producing, that somehow we can try to build upon and try to learn from that and try to see how we come to the metric. So in the middle of that discussion is that we come with the catalog of learning assessment that the Institute has been working for a while. This catalog goes to try to frame in this discussion that regardless of what is the initiative, we need to try to work in terms of moving forward, working with partners, define a vision of the initiative, foster transparency, be effective. We have to come with the metrics, and with conducting formal consultations, and sustain a global community of practice. So we need to address all those objectives in terms not only of coming with the metrics. For this reason, the first initiative of the Institute that is related to the catalog has to do with an open the page, and then we launched it last week. The resources that are at the national level, our first attempt, that is going to be related to the information at the country level. These tools developed are the catalog of learning assessment and the database that is related to the learning assessment. This is available on the UIS website, so you have the information of the first group of countries we have been working on. These tools come with the coverage of 53 countries that are already online. We have 120 assessments, 56 assessments, and 64 public examinations that I could see some regions of the world, started by some GP countries, but are also extended to some other regions of the world, and actually is the first step toward getting global with the information of the assessment at the country level. These tools are having a database that is available at the UIS website. This database is having already some pre-featured tables that could be that are available online, so you have some kind of information. The catalog is covering some type of larger scale assessments. Basically, you have two categories: school-based and household-based. Those things, you have three types of categories that are falling into the school-based, and two categories in the household-based assessment. In the first take of this catalog and this database, you're going to see information related to public examination and national assessment, and some information were gathered on citizen-led assessment that are household-based assessments, so it's a different type of category. You're going to see there are some basic characteristics of the assessment in the catalog. You could see stakeholders, the funding, the purposes, the subjects, the languages, the data dissemination policies that the countries are having regarding the national assessments. And then you're going to have the database that is allowing you information of the different categories in terms of the site of implementation, the target population, the subjects that were assessed, the test format and the item type, the measurement model and the reporting metrics, the disaggregation and dissemination of results. And then you have some pre-featured already tables that you are seeing there, and you have that you can download the database. You can try to filter information by country, by region, by type of assessment, by ISCER level, and then you can have this general information. You can download the database, you can copy, you can export to Excel or to PDF, and you have some summaries that could be downloaded as PDF file that allow you to have the information at the country level. So these are basically the tables are our kind of proposal regarding this, the use of this database. And we know that all this information in the end is related to the policymakers. At the end, we care about how the countries and what are the different users of this of the information. So basically, we know that when we have to report, and we are at the country level, that are one of our main concerns, is that we know that the users, we need to think of not building databases for us, but building databases that have been focusing users of information. So we try to build advocacy of the relevance of using robust measurement tools to provide evidence for developing targeted approach towards better school and classroom practices, to generate a global community of practice in the area, to define indicators to report progress in learning outcomes toward the 2030 education goals. And I put this in the end of the list because we really care much more of how the information is used than about monitoring or tracking towards the 2030 agenda. We want the kids to learn, then we have the monitoring thing that it should be at the end of our concerns. So we know that the assessment are really about learning and about learning improvement. The role of assessment in the countries is to improve learning. We know that the technical aspects are relevant. We need that the good test implies good sampling, good that means important of the test that most of the time is at the center stage as the only issue to be under consideration. If those we need good data, and good data implies all this issue, and it's very difficult if you don't have good information. All the market failures and problems, information and incentives, and this is why we and from there go into detail for time's sake. Question that this is used in one of the papers produced in the past for the UNESCO Institute for Statistics. I was not the director at that time, but I saw with admiration at that moment the way it was framed and how the information of assessment were used in terms of the possibility on trying to get data that is informing policy from assessment. And then you have some of the 10 questions that Douglas Wilm in that paper addressed in that moment, that is the variation in education performance, for instance, among schools and countries significant. He used the PIRS 2001, and actually most of the information was at that moment, surprisingly, the use related to Argentina, so you can get into the issue of how relevant is the issue of read pages and the Matthew effect in the type of responding to that measure. You can also have information related to the correlation between socioeconomic status and learning outcomes, and try to see how you could derive policy making in effective policies in reading well this indicator, forgetting about the legal table and using the information productively and effectively for policy making at the country level. And you can address all type of questions like, do school outcomes vary, accounting by student and school mean of socioeconomic status, for instance. Also, you can go, and I invite you to go to and try to get the paper, because you will have some of those questions in this presentation. This was part also of some material used at the AIA workshop in policy planning some months ago in South Africa. Is a student academic achievement being affected by school composition? Is some of the questions that when you are the policy maker, you are the minister, you are the director of planning in the country, you need to address this thing and have an answer and have to build a policy that depends on the information you have about the composition of the school body. And you have things, and you have questions about the resources, and you can do some policy database that come from learning outcomes and consider different alternatives of policy making. Should I go for a universal intervention? Should I go for a focalized intervention? To what extent I should use socioeconomic status to be the targeting criteria? Should I use compensatory policy making? These are the kind of things and the kind of questions that we know that we are statistical division of the planning unit in a country. So this information in terms of effective policy. And for this reason, we care so much from the UIS in terms of leveraging the resources at the country level, because we know that this information, we have the obligation to try to help leading that process in terms of the use of information. So basically, we know that we need to have a full understanding of what data inform and do not inform. Is crucial to understand what we could do with the data we have. We know that the combination and analysis of achievement data and background information is needed for an indication or identification of impact. We know that this information is in most of the case gathered by the national assessment, so we need to kind of work and help the countries and support the countries in trying to read and derive policies from there. We know that regulation and analysis of data allows governments to understand their own processes and to evaluate their impact. And we know that this is not enough. We need partnerships and a broad capacity building and a broad building a strategy in terms of supporting countries and tying the work of NGOs and the work of Institute of Planning and the work of the capacity development and the work of the donors. We need to kind of combine each of us to play our role in terms of achieving SDG 4. So basically, this is what I wanted to kind of share with you, the work we are doing in terms of measuring the metric, but actually to present to you this first step towards building this global partnership for learning that does try to see what the countries are doing and try to see what we can learn from what the countries are doing with the databases. Thank you so much. Okay. Issues the institute is learning membership. That is the initiative that the Institute is having so far in terms of the metric. We are working in this moment towards trying to build from this cross-national assessment that are there, regional and international assessment, coming with indicators for the end of primary, for the end of lower, in linking the assessment that are so far and trying to find a way of linking the different assessment and define the technical possibility of those linkage and try to have this snapshot using the combination and the linking of the different assessment and to the client to use an indicator once we work towards that linking in terms of the basic or the minimal level of achievement. And so for this, we need to define a framework and what is the minimal level of achievement that the different countries are having in terms of the end of primary and the end of lower secondary. So we will have to work towards that process. That is the framework, what are the minimal level of achievement, and once this is one point, on the other side, we need to find a way to link somehow the different cross-national initiatives to try to come with a common or global way of equating the different processes. And so this is related to the first question. And the second question is how this is indicator we're going to be measured. Our goal as international community is not try to duplicate or the efforts that are already being carried out by different regional and international assessment. So basically what we're trying to do is try to see if we could take advantage of all the initiatives that are already in place, try to see if we could link or equate them to express them in a way that could be comparable across initiatives. This is a very delicate technical process. We still don't know if to what extent it could be robust in the way of comparing. So we need to do some work still, some field trial, and have to prove the different alternatives. Those initiatives are still under consideration, and we are working, and we have different partners that are contributing to this work. So after this, if we really succeed into that, then after we prove that we could link, then we go into the following step, that is try to see if we could come with this measure of minimum level of a standard across those link initiatives. So we have another question. Oh, thank you so much. How this global assessment can be made relevant for the large variation of countries and educational system is the question that has been proposed for some of you in the chat. We have as I stated, the interest, and our main interest is to have some kind of metric and to keep at the center stage the fact that we need to have a robust and technically robust measure to help countries to draw good policy making. This is the first issue we need to have at the center stage. We to keep at the same time and to support the countries in keeping their national initiatives, as we think that this is the way to go on, because the national initiatives, the national assessment allow the countries to have a rich and a broad perspective on the different factors that are and the policy drivers that could be behind learning outcomes. So we know that this global assessment and this global measure is going to be allowing us to track and to see how it moves according to some international standards, but actually we know that it's not that easy, that this global assessment is going to be providing all the informations that the policymakers would need at the country level or at the regional level. For this reason, we propose to try to use what is there, to try to link, to find a way of the countries, to signal to the countries what are the minimum standards that are needed in terms of the goal they should have in terms of the goal in learning outcome for the kids at these two levels, but at the same time to keep other measures and to keep the information at the national level, to try to get more information regarding the factors that affect the learning outcomes. And so for this reason, the global measure could be allowing some information and some disaggregation, but it's not as rich as the information that could be gathered at the national or regional level, that you can have the way of adding more questions or do oversampling in some special groups, and you could include some other type of factors that are not so easy to be included in that tries to keep some kind of a tracking of what the countries are doing, but not with the level of detail that could allow policy making at levels of monitoring the link. Is the catalog available to everybody? Yes, you can go to the website and you actually could download the database. You could download the tables, as we have proposed 8 tables already that are pre-made, or you could download the database and actually play yourself, and you could put filters, and you could have this information. And we have actually published a reduced set of the variables, because with the database we have so far is much more richer than the database we have uploaded, but we try to keep at the key issues that we consider to do. And you can have that information, and we're happy to share, and we're happy to kind of share more information if needed. And one of the issues that actually I want to highlight in terms of the work of the UNESCO Institute for Statistics is that we don't publish anything after before the countries allow or certify that the information that we have been analyzing is okay with them. So the information you are seeing also at the same time has been, after being collected, we ask the countries if they are okay with information and is really fair to what they are doing, and we uploaded this data so you can feel safe that this information is really also showing and in accordance with what the countries are doing. So just please go to the site and put download. We have some other questions here, and thank you so much, about how can we build capacity in countries to be able to perform assessment. I think that a good way to share, and actually we don't want to be this kind of a top-down approach, and for this reason we thought very carefully in the catalog in the last years and try to build towards this, is that we have to learn as international community from what the countries are doing. And we think that for the countries it's good also to know what other countries are doing. You can go and try to see if some other countries in the regions or your neighbor or some other countries are doing in terms of the assessment. You can see eventually some way of classification or a way of addressing issues that you have not thought for your country that could be possible. And then actually, when we're in the middle of the policy making and our routine life in the ministries of planning, in terms of the units of planning of the ministries of education, sometimes you have a time to think about alternatives to what we're doing. And I think that if you go to the catalog and you see what other countries are doing, you have a good way to see that it's not IEP or UIS or UNESCO or other our sister agencies that are telling you this is doable, and a set of technicians eventually from some academia that you see that is too far away. Some are so people that are in the same work that you are doing at the Ministry of Education in some other country that is tackling the issue in a different way that might be interesting for you actually to think and to try to see if you could approach in that particular way. So it's a way of sharing information between colleagues that are doing the same job in different parts of the world, and I think that is a good way to learn from each other, and for us also to learn from you of what you are doing at the country level. And this is also some kind of a learning process for us as an international community. And so we're really very grateful for you, for the countries who are sharing with us your experience. And another question we have is that if assessment is linked to performance and national achievement, how to increase the reliability of the assessments? We're very supportive from UNESCO and obviously from the UIS as a statistical branch, in that the national assessments are to be respected. We know that the policymakers at the country level do have some kind of objective, and we do respect the political decisions that are surrounding those assessments. So we know that it could be a the global metric, and the need to, this global metric is more related more than the issue about the global metric on how to do a legal table or how to compare sharing a good way of knowing what the countries are for the countries to try to increase eventually some part of the technical process of the assessment that could be improved, and the country eventually is not aware that actually has a room for improvement. So I think that the issue of the reliability of the assessment has sometimes been raised, and we know that they have some heterogeneity, as we already referred during the presentation. But the only way to work towards improvement with the countries and see if we could find a way of giving the help to the countries that might be needing the help. indicator associated to target 4.1 has been under discussion and under consideration for a while. This is discussed and proposed, and we have our proposal from the international community, the UN expanded system. But finally, the list of indicators has been decided by the interagency expert group that are the 28 countries that are representing the different regions of the world. And those countries have been agreed upon measuring reading and math by the end of primary and by the end of lower secondary. So the fact that reading and math are the main areas now to be measured is not to some extent one choice that we have been made, is some starting point to measure. Though we have in some of the other targets measurement regarding global citizenship or the education for sustainability. We have 4.4 that is regarding related to digital literacy and ICT skills, so it's not limited to reading and math, but we are starting, and it's a huge challenge to try to come with the global metric just for reading and math and for the other areas. So I think for challenge as a first step is enough, and we are going to be working towards including more aspects in terms of measurement. It's always a risk to measure something because it's a risk that tends to be too focused in the area you are measuring. We're trying for this reason and try to keep the focus on the different aspects that are related to the assessment in terms of having a good way and a good consideration of the different stages of the process, in trying to use this information in terms of the focus on improvement, and the fact that we are trying to measure this minimum level of achievement is the fact that we know that in some countries this minimum level of achievement is not in this moment achieved. So we focus on the fact, and this is the indicator and the goal, that is focused on the issue that in many countries, many of the kids and most of the kids are unfortunately not achieving minimum levels according to the different international assessments. So we know that it shouldn't be limited, and we know that the countries that are already having a focus on investing in education are wanting to have more than this, but we need to keep the track and try to keep and push forward the idea of that those levels, these minimum levels, are the ones we cannot accept that the kids any child in the world gets to know less than those minimum levels of achievement. And we know that most of the countries in the world are really committed to much more than this. So it's a first stage. We know that it has a kind of a risk, but at the same time, it's a way that the international community has found as a way to grant a minimum level of education for those kids that are actually now are really deprived of not only of access, but the possibility of learning this minimum level of education in both reading and math. So I think that as everything, as every tool, as every indicator has a risk, we think that the possibilities of benefiting from having those indicators in this moment are much higher than the risk, because we know that most countries in the world are committing to achieving much more than those minimum levels. And in those countries that will really have trouble, we really need to push forward toward having at least this minimum level. So as international community, we have decided that this is the way to go, and I think that what we try to do is that try to focus, and this is our role from UNESCO, is try to focus not only on metrics and measuring, is try to focus on supporting, and try to see how the countries are effectively using at the policymaker level this information for improving learning outcomes. And this is the fact that we're trying to coordinate our actions between different levels of within UNESCO and try to support the countries to achieve the SDG 4, and not just to try to come with a metric or a measure. From the UIS, our role is kind of tougher in the sense of we are the ones who are going to come with the indicator of the metric, but we try to keep us open the consultation and try to hear and try to learn from the countries in terms of defining that indicator. But it's part of the risk, and we think that the benefit by far outweigh the risk. But the chat, thank you.